I never planned to hold a multi-million-dollar logistics firm by the throat, but when you back a coder into a corner, sometimes the code bites back. For the last 3 years, I have been the ghost in the machine for a mid-sized shipping logistics company called Valhalla Transport. My official title was Junior Systems Administrator, but in reality, I was the architect, the janitor, and the surgeon for their entire routing infrastructure. When I started, their system was a chaotic mess of spreadsheets and whiteboard scribbles. Over 2 years of sleepless nights and fueled by way too much caffeine, I built the Spire. The Spire was a custom automation script that handled everything. It routed trucks, calculated fuel costs, managed driver shifts, and most importantly, it communicated with the erratic legacy servers of our biggest client, a massive retail giant we will call the Titan Group. The Titan Group servers were ancient. They would change their API protocols at random times, sometimes at 3:15 a.m., sometimes at 11:47 p.m. If our system didn't handshake with theirs within 30 seconds of a protocol shift, we would lose the shipping manifest for the next 24 hours. That meant losing about $40,000 a day. To combat this, I wrote a subroutine in the Spire called the Watchman. It was a script that pinged the Titan Group every 10 seconds. If it detected a shift, it auto-corrected our protocols to match. It was delicate, it was complex, and it required me to manually calibrate it every Tuesday morning at 8:30 a.m. Enter Mercer. Mercer was our new director of IT operations. He was a man who spoke exclusively in buzzwords and had clearly failed upward through several companies before landing at ours. He wore suits that were too shiny, drove a car that was too loud, and had a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Within his first week, he called a meeting to discuss streamlining the fat. "We are spending too much on personnel hours for maintenance," Mercer said, tapping a laser pointer on the slice representing my department. "I have been reviewing the logs. We have a junior admin," he looked directly at me, "who is logging 10 hours of overtime every week just to, quote, monitor the scripts. Automation should be automated. If you have to watch it, it is not working." "It is not that simple," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "The Titan Group changes their protocols randomly. The Watchman script needs manual adjustment because..." Mercer held up a hand, silencing me. "The Watchman. That is the cute name you gave your little project?" "Listen, I have a vendor, OmniSoft, who can provide a cloud-based solution for half your salary. It is plug and play, standardized. We do not need custom home brew code gumming up the works. It is a liability." OmniSoft is a generic ERP wrapper. It does not have dynamic protocol handshaking. If the Titan Group updates their servers at 2 a.m., OmniSoft won't catch it. We will lose the contracts." Mercer laughed. It was a dry, condescending sound. "You think you are the only one who knows how computers work? I have been in this industry for 20 years. We are transitioning to OmniSoft effective the 1st of the month. And regarding your position, since the new software is automated, we won't be needing a junior admin to babysit it. We are letting you go, effective immediately. We will pay out your 2 weeks, but we need your badge and laptop now." My stomach dropped. It wasn't just the firing, it was the arrogance. He was deleting the safety net and firing the acrobat mid-jump. "You are making a mistake," I said, standing up. "If the Watchman goes down, the routing table corrupts. It is not just about missing a shipment. If the tables corrupt, the database overwrites the driver logs. You will lose legal compliance for the DOT checks." "I think we can handle it," Mercer sneered. "Security will escort you out." I looked at Elias one last time. He mouthed, "I am sorry. I didn't yell. I didn't make a scene. I just nodded." I took my personal drive from my bag, handed over my company laptop, and placed my badge on the mahogany table. Here is the thing about the Spire. I didn't install a virus. I didn't plant a logic bomb. I didn't delete a single line of code. I simply followed orders. Mercer wanted me gone immediately? Fine. That meant I wasn't there to perform the Tuesday morning calibration at 8:30 a.m. I walked out of the building at 10:14 a.m. on a Thursday. The weekend passed in a blur of anxiety and rage, but by Sunday night, a strange calm washed over me. I realized I wasn't the one holding the grenade anymore. I was just the guy who had been holding the pin. Monday came. I slept in until 11 a.m. It was glorious. Then Tuesday arrived. I knew the schedule by heart. At 8:30 a.m., the watchman would look for the calibration key. When it didn't find it, it would assume a security breach or a server error and go into safe mode. Safe mode meant it stopped auto-correcting the protocols to prevent data corruption. At 9:15 a.m., the Titan group usually did a minor handshake refresh. I poured myself a coffee and sat on my porch, watching the birds. My phone was on silent, but I could see it lighting up on the table. 1 call, 2 calls, 5 calls. By 10 a.m., I had 12 missed calls from Elias and 3 from a number I didn't recognize. I didn't pick up. I wasn't an employee. I was a civilian, and civilians don't do AITA support. At 1 p.m., there was a knock at my door. I opened it to find a courier standing there with a certified letter. It was a cease and desist from Valhalla Transport's legal department, signed by Mercer, accusing me of sabotaging company property and demanding I return to fix the vandalism immediately or face a lawsuit. I signed for it and closed the door. I called a lawyer friend of mine, Cullum. Cullum is a shark who specializes in labor law. I sent him a copy of my employment contract, the termination letter, and the threatening letter from Mercer. If you touch their systems now, they can claim you caused the damage. Let it burn. So I let it burn. By Wednesday morning, the news had traveled through the industry grapevine. I still had friends in the logistics Slack channels. The rumors were catastrophic. Valhalla Transport had missed 4 consecutive shipping windows. The Titan Group had flagged them for breach of contract. But the cherry on top, the DOT compliance logs. When the OmniSoft system Mercer installed tried to force a sync on top of the frozen database, it corrupted the last 6 months of driving records. Valhalla Transport didn't just have a computer problem, they had a federal legal problem. At 2:45 p.m. on Wednesday, my phone rang again. It was the CEO of Valhalla, a man named Mr. Sterling. I had only met him once at a Christmas party. I put the phone on speaker so Cullum could listen in on the conference line. "Hello," I said. "Is this the system administrator?" Mr. Sterling's voice sounded aged, like he had aged 10 years in 2 days. "Former junior system administrator," I corrected. "Listen," Sterling said, cutting to the chase. "Mercer tells me you planted a virus before you left. He says you are holding our data hostage." "Mercer is a liar and incompetent," I said calmly. "I planted nothing. The system requires manual calibration every Tuesday. Mercer fired the only person who knows how to do it, and he refused to listen when I warned him about the dependency. The system is doing exactly what it was designed to do, locking down to prevent data loss in the absence of an admin." "Oh?" "I am not an employee," I said, "and I have a letter from your director of IT threatening to sue me if I go near your property. The Titan Group is threatening to pull the master contract. If that happens, we are bankrupt by Friday." "I cannot work for you," I said, "but I can work as an independent contractor. Name your price," Sterling said. I looked at Cullum's text on my laptop screen. He had typed out a number. It was absurd. It was greedy. It was beautiful. "My consulting rate is $300 an hour," I said, "with a minimum retainer of 200 hours paid up front. And I want a written retraction of the legal threats, signed by Mercer, along with a formal apology letter for my personnel file to ensure my reputation is clear. And the DOT fines for missing logs are probably, what, $5,000 per driver?" "Done," Sterling said. "Come in, please." He looked at me as I walked past. His face was red, blotchy, and he wouldn't make eye contact. He was holding a box with a sad little potted plant in it. "Excuse me," I said as I squeezed past him in the hallway. "I need to get to the server room. Important work to do." He didn't say a word. I went into the server room, sat down at my old terminal, and logged in with the emergency root access that only Sterling had the password for. It took me 15 minutes to fix it. I simply ran the calibration script. I reset the handshake protocol. I restored the database from the backup that the watchman had created right before it went into safe mode. Green lights flickered across the dashboard. The routing table populated. The driver log synced. The Titan group connection stabilized. Elias walked in, holding 2 cups of coffee. He looked like he had seen a ghost, but he was smiling. "Oh, you got the retainer?" he asked. Check cleared an hour ago," I said, taking the coffee. "Mercer is gone," Elias said, leaning against the server rack. Apparently, Mercer tried to blame OmniSoft, but the vendor sent over the emails where Mercer explicitly told them to ignore the legacy protocols to save money. I finished the contract work over the next 2 weeks, mostly just documenting everything I had already built so that even a monkey could run it, or at least a competent IT director. In the end, I made more money in those 2 weeks than I would have made in a year of working there. I used the money to finish my degree and started my own consulting firm. Valhalla Transport is actually one of my clients now. They pay me a monthly retainer just to ensure the watchman stays awake. The best part? They never did switch to OmniSoft. They realized that sometimes the custom homebrew code that keeps the lights on is worth a hell of a lot more than a shiny suit and a buzzword. So, am I the asshole for letting the company implode instead of breaking the law to fix it for free, knowing it would cost them millions? Would you have stepped in to help before the crash if you were in my shoes? Am I the AH for costing a developer millions of dollars and forcing him to rebuild a stone wall by hand because he tried to bully me out of my lease? I know the title sounds like clickbait, but I assure you, the amount of stress, anxiety, and legal maneuvering required to get to this point was enough to last a lifetime. The satisfaction of the conclusion, however, was worth every single sleepless night. Let me set the scene for you. I am a 24-year-old graduate student working on my doctorate in archival history. For the last 3 years, I have lived in a small, converted carriage house in a historic town in Massachusetts. The property is, or was, stunning. It featured a massive Victorian main house built in the 1890s, extensive gardens, and my little carriage house tucked away in the back corner. My landlady was a woman named Mrs. Gable. She was 82 years old, sharp as a tack, and treated me like family. Because I helped her with the heavy lifting in the garden, shoveled the snow in the winter, and generally kept an eye on things, she charged me incredibly low rent. More importantly, she signed a strict 5-year lease with me to ensure I would have a stable place to live until I finished my dissertation. She often told me, as long as I am alive, this is your home, and if I die, I made sure that lease will protect you. I never thought I would have to test that theory so soon. 6 months ago, Mrs. Gable passed away in her sleep. It was a devastating loss. I helped organize the funeral, I watered her plants, and I waited to hear from her next of kin. Enter Gary. Gary is Mrs. Gable's estranged son. He lives in California and works in tech sales, though I am still not sure what he actually sells other than his own soul. He flew in for the funeral, spent the entire service on his phone, and listed the property for sale the very next day. I tried to talk to him. I said, "Gary, I have a lease on the carriage house. There are 2 years left." He looked at me like I was a bug on his windshield and said, "Yeah, we will see about that. The new owner will deal with you." 2 weeks later, the sold sign went up. It was a shell company called Vulture Capital LLC. The man behind Vulture Capital is a developer named Sterling. If you were to cast a villain for a low-budget movie about corporate greed, you would cast Sterling. He is mid-40s, permanently orange from spray tans, and drives a white G-Wagon that takes up 2 parking spots. His vision for the property was to demolish the historic Victorian home, demolish my carriage house, and build a luxury micro-apartment complex with 40 units and an underground parking garage. The only thing standing in his way was me. The first meeting I met Sterling at 7:15 a.m. on a Saturday. I was woken up by the sound of heavy boots on my front porch. I opened the door to find Sterling and a man holding a clipboard. Sterling didn't introduce himself. He just pointed at me and said, You are the tenant." I said, "I am. Can I help you?" He smirked and said, "You can help me by packing." "I want this unit vacant by the 1st of the month. We are bringing in the excavators on the 5th. I crossed my arms and said, "I have a lease. It transfers with the sale of the property. I have 2 years remaining. I am not leaving." Sterling laughed. It was a dry, barking sound. He stepped closer, invading my personal space, and lowered his voice. "Look, kid, everyone has a number. I will give you $5,000 cash. You take it, you sign a lease termination, and you leave. Or you can stay, and I will make your life so miserable, you will beg me to let you leave." I looked him in the eye and said, "It is not about money. This is my home. Please get off my porch." He turned to the contractor and said, "Start the fence line on Monday. Block his view." The escalation Sterling was a man of his word. He did make my life miserable. It started with the inspections. In my state, a landlord must give 24 hours of notice before entering. Sterling would tape a note to my door at 8:59 a.m. on Tuesday just so he could legally unlock my door at 9 a.m. on Wednesday. He would bring in 3 or 4 muddy contractors. They would walk through my living room with dirty boots, measuring the walls and talking loudly about demolition costs while I was trying to study. When I asked them to take off their boots, Sterling said, "OSHA regulations. Boots stay on." He wasn't legally allowed to demolish the main house yet because the permits were pending, but he was allowed to do interior remediation. This apparently meant hiring 2 guys with sledgehammers to smash walls from 7 a.m. until 5 p.m. every single day. The main house was only 20 feet away from my window. It felt like living inside a drum. I bought noise-canceling headphones. I started spending 12 hours a day at the university library. I tried to ignore it. Then he got dirty. He had installed high-intensity construction security lights on the back of the main house, aimed directly into my bedroom window. It was like trying to sleep inside the sun. I bought blackout curtains the next day. 2 days later, my water shut off. He picked up on the first ring. I said, "Sterling, I have no water." He said, "Oh, that is terrible. We had a plumbing emergency in the main line. We had to cap it. Might take a week to get the parts, maybe 2. I knew this was illegal. I called the Board of Health and the town code enforcement. They came out the next day and cited him. They forced him to turn the water back on within 4 hours. When the water came back on, Sterling was waiting for me in the driveway. He looked furious. He said, "You think you are smart? Calling the city, you are playing a game you cannot win. I have lawyers on retainer who cost more per hour than you make in a year. I will bury you in paperwork. I will drain your bank account. Just take the deal. The offer is now $2,000. It goes down every day." I was shaking, honestly. I am not a confrontational person. I am an academic. I like dusty books and quiet rooms, but something about his arrogance snapped something inside me. I said, "Get out of my way, Sterling." The research phase, I realized that fighting him on his terms was impossible. He had money, he had lawyers, he had time. But I had something he didn't have. I had access to the university archives and a master's degree in historical research. If he wanted to play dirty, I was going to play ancient. I knew that the town we lived in was obsessed with historical preservation. The zoning laws here are a labyrinth of red tape designed to keep the town looking like it is still 1890. I stopped sleeping. Instead, I spent my nights digging. I went to the town hall basement. The clerk there, Janice, is a woman who has worked for the town since 1984. She protects the records like a dragon protects gold. But she liked me because I had done research there before for my thesis. I brought Janice a box of donuts and said, "Janice, I need to see everything on the Gable estate. Go back as far as you can." We pulled the deeds, we pulled the survey maps, we pulled the will of the original owner from 1895, a man named Captain Whitaker. Captain Whitaker was a sea captain who hated the town council. Apparently, in 1898, the town tried to tax him for a stone wall he built along the road. In a fit of rage, he did something incredibly petty. I found a document titled The Deed of Grant for the Preservation of Bovine Pathways. In 1898, Captain Whitaker carved out a 12-foot-wide strip of land running directly through the center of his property, the exact strip of land that is currently the paved driveway leading to the main house and my carriage house. He deeded this strip to a trust called the Bovine Pathways Trust, to be used exclusively for the transit of livestock and foot traffic. But here was the kicker. The trust was dissolved in 1922. According to the dissolution paperwork, the ownership of that strip of land did not revert to the Whitaker family. It reverted to the municipality, meaning the town itself. However, the deed came with a spite clause. It read, "This land shall remain unpaved forevermore to serve as a testament to the natural beauty of the cow path. No motorized carriages shall linger upon it. Any stone walls bordering this path that are removed must be replaced by hand, using original stone, to maintain the sanctity of the livestock corridor." And it was subject to a strict preservation easement that banned paving. Sterling had paved the driveway 3 days ago to prepare for his heavy excavators. Even worse, to widen the entrance for his trucks, he had bulldozed a 30-foot section of the original stone wall that ran along the road. I looked at Janice. I said, "Janice, can we get a certified copy of this map and this deed?" Janice looked at the paperwork. She adjusted her glasses. She smiled a very wicked smile. She said, "Honey, I will stamp it 3 times. The trap, I didn't reveal my hand immediately." I needed Sterling to commit fully. I needed him to be so deep in the hole that he couldn't climb out. The demolition permit for the main house was approved on a Thursday. Sterling scheduled the actual demolition for Monday morning. On Sunday night, I saw the heavy equipment arrive. Massive excavators, dump trucks, and a bulldozer. They were parked all over the paved driveway. Monday morning, 6:30 a.m., the crew arrived. Sterling was there in his G-Wagon. He was wearing a pristine yellow hard hat and a safety vest over his suit jacket. He looked like he was posing for a magazine cover. I brewed a pot of coffee. I grabbed my folding camping chair. I walked out my front door. I walked down the driveway, right past the idling excavator. I sat down and took a sip of coffee. Sterling saw me immediately. He marched over, his face turning a deep shade of crimson. He screamed, "What do you think you are doing? Move, we are working here," I said. "Good morning, Sterling. Lovely day for a sit." He yelled, "I am calling the police." "This is trespassing. You are obstructing a construction site," I said. "Please do, call them." He pulled out his phone and dialed 911. He was shouting into the phone, "Yes, I have a tenant who has lost his mind. He is blocking the equipment. I want him arrested." 2 police cruisers arrived 10 minutes later. The officers walked up. Sterling was bouncing on his toes, pointing at me. He said, "Officer, arrest him! Trespassing! Obstruction!" The officer looked at me. "Sir, you need to move. You are on private property." I pulled out a thick folder. I said, "Officer, actually, I am not on private property. According to this certified deed from 1898 and this survey map from the town clerk's office, I am sitting on a historic public right-of-way known as the Whitaker Bovine Path." I handed the officer the map. I continued, "Furthermore, this man, Mr. Sterling, is currently illegally parking heavy commercial machinery on a protected pedestrian easement. He is also illegally paved over town land. And if you look over there," I pointed to the pile of rubble where the wall used to be. I said, "He has destroyed a registered historic landmark on town property." The officer looked at that. He looked at the driveway. He looked at Sterling. Sterling was laughing. He said, "This is bull. It is a driveway. I bought the land." The officer radioed dispatch. "Can we get the town zoning officer and the town attorney down here?" "Yeah, it is a weird one. The showdown by 8:30 a.m., it was a party. Janice from the town hall was there. The town attorney, a guy named Mr. Henderson, was there. The head of the historical commission, a woman named Mrs. Higgins, was there. Mrs. Higgins was nearly in tears looking at the destroyed wall. Mr. Henderson, the attorney, was reviewing the documents I had provided. Sterling was standing there, sweating through his suit, yelling at his own lawyer on the phone. Mr. Henderson cleared his throat. The construction crew turned off their engines. It was silent.
Mr. Henderson said, "Mr. Sterling, it appears there has been a significant oversight in your title search."
Sterling said, "I have title insurance. I own this." Mr. Henderson shook his head. "You own Lot A and Lot B. This strip of land, 10 feet wide, right down the middle, is Lot C. It is owned by the town of Oak Haven, and it is subject to a strict preservation restriction." Sterling went pale. Mr. Henderson continued, "You have paved town property without a permit. That is a fine. You are parking commercial vehicles on a pedestrian path. That is a fine. But the big issue is the wall." Mrs. Higgins stepped forward. She pointed a shaking finger at Sterling. "That wall was listed on the 1975 Historic Register. You demolished it," Sterling stammered. It was in the way. I can build a new one. I will pour a concrete wall next week." Mrs. Higgins laughed. It was a terrifying sound. She said, "You will absolutely not pour concrete. The deed restriction requires the wall to be built of original material, dry stacked stone, no mortar." The police officer stepped in. "Mr. Sterling, I am issuing a stop work order immediately. You need to remove all vehicles from the town easement." Since you cannot drive them on the easement, and you cannot drive them off the easement without crossing it, I am not sure how you are going to get them out. But they cannot stay here. The fallout the next 3 months were the best of my life. The stop work order froze everything. Sterling could not demolish the main house. He could not touch my carriage house. The town council held a special hearing. Because Sterling had been so aggressive and rude to the town officials in the past, they threw the book at him. They cited a state law regarding the destruction of historic monuments on public land. The penalty was treble damages or triple the cost of restoration. Sterling was ordered to remove the asphalt driveway he had just paid $30,000 to install. He had to pay a crew to jackhammer it up by hand so they didn't damage the soil underneath, remediate the soil to ensure no oil or contaminants had leaked, rebuild the Whitaker Wall. The wall was the killer. The town hired a specialist mason to oversee the project. Sterling had to pay for it. Because the original stones had been scooped up by a bulldozer and mixed with debris, many were broken. Sterling had to hire laborers to sift through the debris pile by hand to recover the original granite stones. For the ones that were broken, he had to source antique weathered granite from a specialty quarry in Vermont. The bill for the wall alone was over $150,000. But the real death blow was the zoning. Remember how he wanted to build a 40-unit apartment complex? Zoning laws require a certain amount of contiguous square footage for that density. Because the bovine path split his property right down the middle into 2 smaller non-contiguous lots, he no longer met the minimum size requirement for the apartment complex. He applied for a variance. I went to the town hall meeting. So did 30 of my neighbors who didn't want a mega apartment complex on our quiet street. I stood up and spoke about the history of the cow path. I spoke about preserving the character of the town. The zoning board voted unanimously. Variance denied. The End Vulture Capital LLC imploded. Sterling had taken out a hard money loan with a high interest rate to fund the construction, counting on a quick build and sale. When the permits were denied and the restoration costs piled up, the bank called the loan. Ooh, he couldn't pay. The property went into foreclosure. Sterling tried to sue me for tortious interference. The judge dismissed the case in 10 minutes. He said, "You cannot sue someone for revealing public records that prove you broke the law." Last week, the foreclosure sale went through. The new buyer is a local non-profit historical preservation society. They bought the main house and the carriage house for pennies on the dollar. They are planning to turn the main house into a museum and community center. And me? I sat down with the director of the non-profit yesterday. They want someone to live on site as a caretaker. They offered me a new lease, 10 years, rent-free, in exchange for managing the grounds and opening the museum on weekends. I accepted. This morning, I sat on my porch with my coffee. I watched a landscaping crew planting wildflowers along the bovine path. Sterling lost his development. He lost millions of dollars. He lost his reputation, all because he wouldn't let me finish my lease. So I have to ask, am I the AH for digging up a 105-year-old law to ruin a man's life? Or did he dig his own grave when he tried to bulldoze mine? Here is a question for the comments. Have you ever found a loophole that saved you from a terrible situation? I want to hear your stories. My best friend, let's call him Kieran, tried to sell our entire future for a $5,000 signing bonus and a spot on the team that was trying to crush us. So I waited until the grand finals in front of 50,000 live viewers, and I used his own plan to systematically and publicly blow up his entire career. We were nobodies, just a small, self-funded gaming team. We called ourselves Ethereum Void. There was me, Silas. I'm the team captain and the strategist, the IGL or in-game leader. Then there was Kieran, my best friend since high school, our main sniper, and 3 others, Donovan, Malia, and our sub, Rook. We lived in a cramped apartment, sharing bills, eating instant noodles, and pouring every spare cent and every waking hour into one game. We were good, really good, good enough to qualify for the Regional Challenger League tournament. $100,000 and a contract with a major esports organization, complete with sponsorships, a real team house, and actual salaries. It was, quite literally, everything we had ever dreamed of. The problem was Crimson Tide. They were the final boss of our region. They were legacy players, backed by a millionaire owner. They had celebrity coaches, sports psychologists, and gear that cost more than our apartment's lease. And we were slated to play them in the finals, assuming we both made it. We were plowing through the tournament. Our strategies, which I spent months designing, were working perfectly. We weren't just winning, we were dominating. I design our playbooks with a lot of care. They aren't just simple plans, they're complex, with multiple contingencies, if-then scenarios, and callouts. They were our secret weapon, and only the 5 of us had access to the team's shared drive where I kept them. The first weird thing happened during our quarterfinal match. We were up against a team we'd studied, and they were frankly not very good. Then, in round 3, they ran a perfect counter to one of my most obscure plays, a play I knew no one had ever seen. It was such a specific hard counter, it couldn't be a coincidence. We still won, but that moment stuck with me. I asked the team about it afterward. Kieran just laughed it off. Man, you're not the only genius's strategist, Silas. They just got a lucky read. Stop being paranoid. I let it go. Then, a few days later, I saw Kieran with a new keyboard and mouse, the expensive kind, the ones Crimson Tide all use as part of their sponsorship. I asked him where he got it. Oh, just saved up, man, you know. Had some birthday money left over? I knew for a fact his birthday was 6 months away, and I knew for a fact he'd been borrowing money from me for rent just last week. The pit in my stomach got a little deeper. That night, I couldn't sleep. The semifinals were the next day. I got up around 3 a.m. to get some water, and I walked past Kieran's room. His door was cracked, and I heard him whispering. It sounded like he was on a DM call, a direct message call. I heard him laugh and say, "Yeah, Silas thinks he's so smart. He has this one play. He calls it Viper's Nest. It's so dumb. Basically, he has me," and he proceeded to describe, verbatim, our main strategy for the semifinals. I felt the blood drain from my face. I stood there, frozen, for maybe 30 seconds. I wanted to storm in. But who was he talking to? I crept back to my room, my heart hammering so hard I thought he'd hear it. I sat down at my PC, my computer. I needed proof. I needed to know who. I had an old network monitoring tool I used back in college to optimize our dorm's connection. I installed it. I routed all the apartment's traffic through my machine. I wasn't a master hacker, but I knew how to read a packet log. I waited. At 3:14 a.m., I saw it. A sustained data packet transfer from Kieran's IP address, his internal IP address, to an external server. I did a quick trace on the server's IP. It was registered to a holding company. a holding company owned by the parent corporation of Crimson Tide. My best friend was a mole. He was selling us out. I didn't say anything. I felt cold. We had the semifinals in less than 12 hours. If I confronted him, the team would implode. We'd forfeit. Everything we'd worked for would be gone. But if I did nothing, we'd lose. He was feeding them our entire playbook. So I made a new plan. I went to our shared drive. I created a new folder. I titled it Project Chimera, Finals Only. Inside, I spent the next 2 hours fabricating the most convoluted, idiotic, and easily countered strategy imaginable. It looked complex on the surface, but it had glaring, obvious, and fatal flaws. Flaws that a team like Crimson Tide would see in about 5 seconds. It was a trap. A fake ace in the hole. Then I went into the team chat at 5 a.m. I wrote, "Guys, woke up with a bolt of inspiration. This is it. This is the play that wins us the finals. I'm calling it Project Chimera. I've just uploaded it. This is our silver bullet. Do not look at it until I say so. I'll brief you if we make it to the finals." I watched my network log. At 5:07 a.m., Kieran's computer accessed the shared drive. At 5:08 a.m., a new data transfer started to the exact same Crimson Tide server. He took the bait. Then I did something that was probably an asshole move. Kieran and I used to share all our accounts. We were brothers. I still had the login for his streaming account, the one he used for his personal DMS I logged in. I told myself it was for the good of the team. I didn't have to look for long. There it was, a long DM chain with Crimson Tide's star player, Reaper. Kieran, here's the new one. He calls it Chimera. Looks like his usual overcomplicated garbage. Reaper, good work. Coach is impressed. The 5K bonus is already processing. We'll have your contract ready to sign right after we beat you tomorrow. Can't wait to have a real sniper on the team. Kieran, just make it look good, man. Silas is my friend, you know. Don't want to embarrass him too much. Reaper, lol. No promises. The DMS, the file transfer logs, the server IP trace. I saved it all to a private encrypted folder on my phone. The semifinals were a nightmare. We played the team Kieran had been talking to. They knew our Viper's Nest play. They countered it perfectly. I had to, on the fly, throw out my entire game plan. I told the team, scrap the playbook. We're playing chaos. Just react. Trust your gut. Donovan, you push. Malia, you follow. Kieran, just try to hit your shots. We barely won. It was the ugliest, sloppiest win of our lives. We won 13-11. In the locker room, Donovan was furious. What the hell was that? They read us like a book, Silas. Your plays got us killed. I looked at Kieran. He was sitting in the corner cleaning his new mouse. "Yeah, man," he said, not looking up. "Maybe you're losing your touch." I just nodded. "You're right. My fault. I'll think of something new for the finals tomorrow." The finals. This was it. The stage was huge. There were casters, analysts, and a live audience. 50,000 more people were watching the stream. We were in a soundproof booth. Crimson Tide was in theirs, across the stage. The format was a best of 5. First to win 3 games. Game 1. I decided to use one of our real strategies, one that Kieran had definitely leaked, just to confirm. Sure enough, Crimson Tide came out with a perfect pre-planned counter. They annihilated us. The final score was 13-2. It was a bloodbath. The casters were already talking about a clean 3-0 sweep. My team was shattered. Donovan slammed his keyboard. "What is going on, Silas?" I took a deep breath. My fault. He was trying and failing to hide a smirk. Game 2. "All right," I said into the headset. "New plan. We're running Project Chimera." Kieran's head snapped up. His eyes went wide. "What? No! Dude, that's for a last resort, right? Let's stick to our basics." But yo, I smiled at him. "No, we're running Chimera. Now, get ready." He started to sweat. I could see it. He was stammering. I don't think that's a good idea, man. It's too risky." "Trust me, Kieran," I said. We started game 2. I called the Project Chimera strategy. And, just as I planned, Crimson Tide countered it perfectly. They read every move. They were waiting for us at every corner. It was a trap, and we had walked right into it, and they were the ones who sprung it. They didn't just beat us, they humiliated us. We didn't win a single round. The final score was 13-0. It was the most embarrassing professional loss I'd ever seen. The casters were speechless. I don't know what to say, folks. This is a colossal, a historic strategic blunder from Silas. Ethereum Void looks completely broken. We were down 2 die. One more loss, and our dream was dead. My team was silent. Malia looked like she was about to cry. The refs called for a 10-minute technical pause before Game 3. I stood up. I said, "Team huddle, now. Kieran, you too." We gathered in the small space behind our chairs. Donovan started, "Silas, what the hell was that? You just threw our entire—" "He's right," I said. "I did throw that game. On purpose." The team just stared at me. "What?" Malia whispered. "Kieran," I said, my voice flat. "Check your DMS. Did Reaper say good work?" Kieran's face. "I will never forget it. All the color, all the smugness just vanished." What are you talking about?" "I don't know. Stop," I said. I pulled out my phone. "I want to introduce everyone to Project Chimera. It was a fake play, a trap, one that I knew Kieran would leak to Crimson Tide, just like he's been leaking our entire playbook for the last 2 weeks." I turned my phone screen to Donovan and Malia. I showed them everything. The DMs with Reaper, the $5 bonus, the contract negotiations, the IP logs, the time-stamped file transfers of Kieran downloading Project Chimera at 5:07 a.m. and sending it seconds later. Donovan looked from the phone to Kieran and back. I have never seen a person get that angry, that fast. He didn't say anything. He just lunged. He grabbed Kieran by the shirt and slammed him against the glass wall of the booth. You, Malia was screaming. "I'll kill him." "I'll kill you, you piece of—" "Donovan, let him go," I said calmly. Donovan was shaking, but he dropped him. Kieran just slid to the floor, hyperventilating. "It's fake," he whispered. "It's photoshopped. He's lying. He's just jealous, am I?" I knocked on the booth door. A tournament admin walked over. He looked annoyed. "Pause is over in 2 minutes, guys." "Hi," I said, holding up my phone. "I'm Silas, captain of Ethereum Void. We need to report one of our players for collusion and match fixing. I have definitive, time-stamped proof right here that our player, Kieran, and 2 members of Crimson Tide, including Reapers and their coach, conspired to throw this tournament. I have their DMS." The admin's jaw dropped. He snatched the phone. He read it. His face went dark. "We have a code red. Stage. Now. Get the league commissioner on the line." Within 1 minute, our booth was filled with officials. Kieran was sobbing in the corner. "It's not true! It's not true!" The head official looked at the evidence for 30 seconds. He looked at Kieran. "Get your stuff!" "You're out," he pointed to 2 security guards. "Escort him out of the building. His credentials are revoked. He is banned, effective immediately, pending a lifetime expulsion." Then they went over to the Crimson Tide booth. We couldn't hear, but we could see. We saw Reaper and their coach get pulled out. There was yelling. A keyboard got thrown. The crowd was going insane. The stream was just showing a technical pause screen. After 10 minutes, the head official came back. "Okay, here's the ruling. Kieran is banned. Reaper is banned. The Crimson Tide coach is banned. Per the league rulebook, Section 4, Subsection 2, Crimson Tide is disqualified for collusion. Ethereum Void wins the championship by default. My team, they just stood there. Donovan, Malia, Rook, our sub, who was just watching this all happen. A win by default. All that work, all that pain, for a win with an asterisk." I shook my head. "No." The official stared at me. "What do you mean, no?" "I mean, no," I said. "We don't want to win like that. Look at the proof." I pointed to my phone. "He leaked my plays. My bad plays." The plays I wanted him to leak? But my real playbook, the series befolder, he never saw it. I kept it on a separate drive under my mattress. I knew he was a traitor. I've been planning for this. They just lost their star player and their coach. They're tilted. They're broken. We have Rook. We're ready. I looked back at the official. We want to play. We want to finish the match. Let us finish the match. The official looked at me like I was insane. But he got back on the radio. The call with the commissioner lasted 5 minutes. The crowd was chanting. They could smell the blood. The official hung up. He took a deep breath. The commissioner finds this situation unprecedented. He agrees. The match will resume. Both teams will use their registered substitutes. Game 3 will begin in 5 minutes. Good luck. Kieran was dragged out of the arena by security, screaming and crying. The casters came back on air, their voices trembling with excitement as they tried to explain the situation. In a turn of events I have never seen, Kieran has been disqualified. Reaper has been disqualified for collusion. We are going to a Game 3. We sat down. I put my headset on. I looked at Donovan, Malia, and Rook. All right, I said. He took our playbook. So, we'll use the one he's never seen. Page 1, the gauntlet. What happened next wasn't a match, it was a demolition. Crimson Tide subs were cold, their team was in chaos. They had no coach, no star player. And we were playing with a righteous fury I have never felt before or since. My calls were perfect, their new sniper was no Kieran, and Rook, our sub, played the game of his life. Game 3, we won, 13-1. Game 4, we won, 13-2. The entire time, I was just calling my plays. Coldly. Calmly. We didn't teabag. We didn't trash talk. We just executed. We tied the series 2-2, Game 5, the final map. All for everything. Crimson Tide was completely broken. You could see it in their player cams. They were defeated before the first round even started. We won. 13-0. We won the championship. We won the money. We won the contract. The crowd was roaring so loud, the floor shook. We all jumped up, screaming, hugging. I saw Malia crying. Donovan lifted me off the ground. In the post-game interview, the host asked me, Silas, that Game 2, that 13-0 loss, it was the worst loss of the tournament. And then, what did you change? I just looked at the camera. I knew Kieran was watching. I knew his parents were watching. I knew the whole world was watching. Game 2 wasn't a loss, I said. It was an investment. We just had to take out the trash. Kieran is banned for life from every major league. He's a pariah. He tried to post a My Side video, but I released all the screenshots and he deleted it in an hour. Crimson Tide was fined hundreds of thousands of dollars and their owner was forced to sell the team. Reaper is also banned for life. We got our team house. We're pros now. Life is good. But my old teammates, Donovan and Malia, said my plan was cold. They said I should have just reported him before the match. They said I intentionally embarrassed Kieran and our team with that 13-0 loss just for my own movie moment. They said I was an asshole for risking our entire future on a dramatic plan instead of just taking the safe route. I see it differently. I wanted him to know that his betrayal was the reason he lost. I wanted him to feel it. I didn't just want to win. I wanted him to lose. So, Reddit, AITA, for not just reporting my friend, but for using him as a pawn to throw a game, just so I could expose him and destroy him on the biggest stage possible? What's the most you've ever done to get back at someone who betrayed you?